How's it going, everyone? Got a bit of an update on Stellar Blade as far as that game's commercial performance and an interesting note by an insider about Sega, something that I had speculated on as far as one of these franchises go, but looks like the idea is going to extend to a few franchises. We'll talk about it because I feel like this is major news and we definitely need to cover it, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But first of all, Stellar Blade is a game we've covered ad nauseum on this channel, and it has seemingly pushed some really good performance numbers. We still don't know exactly how far and how well it did commercially in terms of, stateside and worldwide digital versus physical sales, all the nitty-gritty of specifics that I'm sure Sony has data on, but we don't get it. However, we do know that Stellar Blade debuts at #1 in Japan. It sold 67,131 physical units in its first 2 weeks on sale. That number is very good for a Japan number. Obviously, over here in the West, selling 67,000 copies wouldn't be seen as a gigantic success, but in Japan, that is a pretty good number. I've talked about it before, but Stellar Blade is one of those new games that it seems like Sony has a W on their hands as far as an IP that they can build off of. I don't know what Shift Up is gonna do next, but I just feel like it would be business malpractice to already have the foundation of a game in place. You already have a character that you can monetize and a character that is, I wouldn't say beloved by the gaming community, but a character that is well-liked by the gaming community, to say the least, and one that you can definitely build off of her into future titles, and that's very difficult to do in a new IP. New IPs come out all the time, and that's been one of the big stories over the last few years. You look at titles like Callisto Protocol, Forspoken, Immortals of Aveum, even Rise of Ronin. Rise of Ronin did well, but I feel like that game didn't get as much attention as Stellar Blade. Now, Stellar Blade obviously has a few things going for it to get it into the social media dialogue, and I've always said you can only take social media dialogue with a grain of salt. It's always good to have data, but it's how you assess the data. But when we see stats like this, Stellar Blade debuting at #1 in Japan, obviously, that is a good direct commercial stat, the game being player's choice in April. Again, a good stat to know, and seemingly the game has done very well commercially. I am still of the mindset that this game was one that would have done exceedingly well if it was released day one on PC. I imagine it's gonna come out on PC, a year or two from now, it'll probably drop on PC, and I still see it doing very well on there. That's typically Sony's MO, where, games that are single player, they'll wait a year, usually 2 years, and much like the recent reveal or leak of God of War Ragnarok coming out on PC, about a 2-year window. I would imagine 2026 would be 2 years, so Stellar Blade would be on PC by then, and I see it doing very well on there. But given that it only released on PlayStation 5, I didn't really see the game as a true system seller. If you didn't have a PlayStation 5 at this point, I don't think Stellar Blade is a game that's going to get you to buy a PS5, especially with the notion that, most of these PlayStation titles are ultimately coming to PC, and if you don't have a PS5 yet, you probably have a PC. I doubt that there are that many people at this point that have an Xbox as their primary gaming console, and Stellar Blade is going to be the game that'll make them get a PS5. I just don't think that's the case, but I see this game doing incredibly well over the next few years. As it sees discounts, as it is released on PC, I think the numbers are just going to soar for this game, and I think if they ultimately do a Stellar Blade 2, it's going to do very, very well, because this game has been received exceedingly well. That not doing a sequel would just seem asinine to me. There's not a lot of opportunities where a new IP really pops off. I've said it before. New studio, relatively unknown over here in the West in terms of the console market, $70 game, single-player oriented. There are only a few over the last few years that fit into that criteria. I'll look at like a Plague Tale, and Plague Tale did pop off and ultimately get a sequel. Probably will get a third game. That game, $60 game, single-player, unknown studio, so on and so forth. Stellar Blade very much fits that criteria as well, but the game seemingly is doing very well right now commercially, and hopefully those numbers persist. And we do one day get a sequel. And I think it's pretty likely that we'll get a sequel, given that how difficult it is to get a new IP to pop off. Stellar Blade has done exactly that. Moving on from that, here is some very interesting news coming from Midori, Sega Insider. The current plan at Sega is to make Like a Dragon, Persona, and Sonic annual franchises through new titles, remakes, and remasters, DLC expansions, and other media. So Sonic, I've been saying this for a little bit. Sonic Frontiers came out in 2022. You have the 2023 release release of Sonic Superstars, you have this Sonic Generations X Shadow game. In 2026, I really do foresee Sonic Frontiers 2, or whatever they decide to name that game. Persona is another one of those IPs that I didn't know if it was gonna go yearly, but you've been seeing more and more Persona content drop. From Persona 5 Royal back in 2020, you had the release of Persona 4 Golden on PC, you had the release of P3 Portable, as well as Persona 4 Golden on other platforms outside of PC. Then, of course, you had Persona 5 Tactica, then you had Persona 3 Reload. Persona is one of those big IPs that I feel it would be a little bit hard to annualize the series, but if you have spin-off titles like Persona 5 Tactica, I don't think that'll be too difficult. It's just how are games like Tactica gonna do it? And when you annualize these franchises, there is that risk that you run into of diluting those franchises as well. Given that the Persona mainline games are always gonna be seen incredibly well, like whenever you have a remake of a mainline game, those games are always gonna garner quite a lot of interest. And then Sega gonna be Sega, and they're gonna do stuff like charge $100 for the Persona 3 Reload Ultimate Edition, and then also release an expansion pass with DLC. Not a big fan of that, but you know, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. Like a Dragon is an interesting one to me because RGG has two franchises. They have Like a Dragon and they have Judgment. I don't know if Judgment fits into the Like a Dragon criteria where they just consider it all one connected universe and those games are all following the same criteria. I don't know if we're gonna ever get a Judgment 3. But Like a Dragon, obviously, with the mainline games, those games are fairly expansive at this point to develop. Yakuza Like a Dragon came out in January of 2020 in Japan. It saw a later localized release alongside the PlayStation 5, Xbox One. It had that weird, alongside the release of the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, excuse me, it had that weird, like, timed next-gen Xbox exclusivity, which was, like, super random. And, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, it had the illusion over here stateside of coming out just a little over 3 years after, but it's because it got localized at around the same time. Really, the development cycle for these mainline Like a Dragon games has extended to 4 years because it was January 2020 to January 2024. If you look at when Yakuza Like a Dragon came out in Japan. So I wonder, like, what can you really do? Like a Dragon isn't a franchise that has always had a lot of expansions or expansion releases. You've done spin-off games like a Dragon Gaiden, and that was the 2023 title. 2025, I could easily see something like Yakuza Kiwami 3, and we do know that a new mainline Like a Dragon game is in development. They're doing auditions and whatnot, but I don't know how quickly we're gonna get that. I don't foresee us getting that till like 2027, 2028. So what would you release in 25, 26, and 27 if it doesn't come out until, let's say, January 2028? There's only so many things you could possibly do. Yakuza Kiwami 3, certainly one of them. If they do a new Judgment game and it falls into that criteria, those are two titles that I can think of. But outside of that, if you do want to annualize these franchises, I don't, there is limitations that I am seeing, but I'm sure Sega could figure something out. It won't be the most difficult thing in the world, and I do hope we get more Judgment content. I thought Judgment and Lost Judgment were great, and I would prefer if RGG has one franchise that does the new turn-based JRPG style, and then another franchise that is still that action beat-em-up style of game that Yakuza was known for with Yakuza 0 through Yakuza 6, but that's my 2 cents. That's gonna do it for me against Stellar Blade, showing stellar performance. How about that? Yeah, that was terrible, but debuting at #1 in Japan, seemingly doing very well stateside. I do foresee a sequel to that game ultimately happening, and the current plan at Sega is to make Like a Dragon, Persona, and Sonic annual franchise. Now, with Sonic, you also have, like, the movies coming out. I'm sure they could do, like, Yakuza movies if they wanted to, and other styles of media, but I'm particularly thinking about if they want to get a yearly game. And Sonic, it's easy because you could do so many different styles of Sonic games. Like a Dragon is the one that I think there's going to be a little bit of limitations, but you already got the 2024 game. 2023 had Gaiden. What's 2025 going to be? Possibly Kiwami 3. Maybe that's 25 or 26. But I would really love if in 2025 we got that Judgment 3. I would really, really dig that. But I don't even know if that's something being worked on. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.